Hello there, I'm glad you came back. I am the book lady, and what we do here is I read to you 2 books that I think you will enjoy. I picked out one in particular because of something that happened recently. The Queen of England died, and she was 96 years old. Oh, and not just England, but everybody loved the Queen of England. Her name was Elizabeth. And so I went to the library the other day and I saw this book, The Queen's Hat. And I thought it was appropriate for us to read this today. Now, the other book we're going to read is a Curious George book, and we have read other Curious George books. But this one, George, our crazy little monkey, is going to the beach. That should be interesting. But in the Queen's Hat, at the back of the book, they tell us some famous places in London. London is the capital of England. It's a big city. So here are the places that you will hear me read to you from this book. Buckingham Palace. That is the Queen's home. It's a big, huge castle. And it's in London. Now, she has other castles in other areas, but Buckingham Palace is the one that is in London. And think of this, the ballroom. The ballroom is the big room where they'll have dances or big dinner parties. The ballroom is big enough to hold 84 double-decker buses. That's a big ballroom. Okay, the next place is Trafalgar Square, and it's one of the biggest squares in the world. It's home to 4 bronze lions and lots of pigeons. Then there's the London Underground, and it's the oldest underground railway in the world. I didn't know that. Now, we in the United States have an underground, for instance, in New York City, and they call it the subway. Then the London Zoo. It's home to many animals, including lions, camels, giraffes, on and on and on. It's a big zoo in London. The London Eye. What could that be? Well, it is one of the world's largest Ferris wheels. Yeah, it has 32 capsules, and it provides a great view of London. The Tower Bridge. It crosses the Thames, which is the river that runs through London. And it's very close to the Tower of London. Wow. Then Big Ben. What is Big Ben? Well, you won't believe it. It's a huge chiming clock. See? And it has 4 faces. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So wherever you're standing, you can see what time it is. And then Kensington Palace. It's a royal residence. That means a prince, a king, a queen, someone of the royal family. And it's near Kensington Gardens. And a long time ago, Queen Victoria was born there. So these are just interesting places to see in London. So now let's see what happens in this book, The Queen's Hat by Steve Antony. The Queen was on her way to visit someone very special when the wind went. And I brought my hat so that I can be like the Queen. How do you like that? Swoosh! The wind took the Queen's favorite hat right off her head. Ooh, and you know, the Queen always wears a hat. She must have hundreds of hats. It soared high above the Queen, and it whooshed high above the Queen's men. Wow! The wind was so strong that it swept the Queen's hat all the way to Trafalgar Square. Oh my, look at them climbing up on one of the bronze lions trying to get the hat. And then all through the London Zoo. Oh my, this is quite an ado. And all along the London Underground. Wow. And all around the London Eye. Whoa. And look how they did this page. You have to turn the book around to see the page. And all across Tower Bridge. Wow. That was some wind. And all over, here's another one that we have to turn the page. Big Ben. This hat is on an adventure where it sailed up farther into the sky. Until at last the Queen and all the Queen's men floated gently down. I love this picture because look, they all have their umbrellas. But the Queen still does not have her hat. To Kensington Palace, along with the Queen's hat. And look where it landed. I think that's probably one of her grandchildren in a baby carriage. So that hat knew exactly where it was going. And I don't think the Queen was mad. She just thought it was very interesting how the hat went everywhere. But look where it landed. I liked that book, and I hope you do too. Now, the color purple is often considered a royal color. So if you'll notice, the Queen is wearing purple. And I think her hat looks purple too. So we read this in memory of Queen Elizabeth II. You know, there was a Queen Elizabeth I a long time ago. But Queen Elizabeth II just died not too long ago. And the world is kind of sad. They will miss her, but she was 96 and she had a wonderful life. And many people liked her very, very much. And so I thought it was a good thing to read a book called The Queen's Hat. Now we're going to jump to an entirely different place. We're going to the beach. How about that? And I thought, well, you know, when I go to the beach, I wear a hat. Now, why do I wear a hat on the beach? I wear a hat because I don't want too much sun to get on my face or on my ears. I don't want to get sunburned. And this keeps me cooler. And it's a great thing to wear to the beach. I also, if I were going to the beach, I would wear sunglasses. And you know what? I think I would probably put on a little sunblock. And I'd probably put a little on my face, even though I'm wearing the hat. So, since we're going to go to the beach, I thought it would be a good thing to bring my beach hat. Don't you love Curious George? I do too. And I think it's fun to read about all his adventures. This is George. He lived with his friend, the man with the yellow hat. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. What's curious? It means you're interested in things. You want to know, how's that work? Or what's that feel like? Or what's that taste like? You're curious. Today, the man had a surprise for George. He took George to the beach. Oh, I love the beach. They found a spot on the warm sand. Then, another surprise. George saw his friend, Betsy. Oh, look, Betsy, her grandmother said. It's Curious George. But Betsy did not even smile. She had never been in the ocean before, and she was scared. Oh, I know you're a good swimmer, the man told her. You'll be fine once you get in the water. Well, feeling better, Betsy walked toward the shore with her grandmother. George helped spread the beach blanket and set aside their lunch. Oh, he was looking forward to a picnic, but it was not yet time to eat. It was time to play. In no time, George was having fun. He learned a new game. He dug in the sand. He buried his friend, the man with the yellow hat. Have you ever done that at the beach? And he made a new friend. Oh, monkeys are good at making friends. When he took a break, George watched the lifeguard. Oh, the lifeguard sat in a special chair. Sometimes he blew his whistle. And sometimes he looked through binoculars. Oh, it looked like fun to be a lifeguard. George was curious. Could he be a lifeguard? Before long, the lifeguard took a break. Here was George's chance. Watching the crowd from up in the special chair, George felt just like a lifeguard. He looked through the binoculars. Oh, there was a lot to see at the beach. And I love this picture because it shows all the different things that people do at the beach. He saw seagulls flying high above, and he saw Betsy on the shore below. She still had not been in the water. Then the lifeguard saw George. "Hey!" he yelled. "That's no place for a monkey!" George thought it was a fine place for a monkey, but he didn't want to cause trouble, so he climbed down. Back at the beach blanket, George, well, he was hungry for a snack. No one would miss just one cracker, thought George. He took one out and put it on a napkin. It looked good. Now, if he only had some cheese. Uh-oh. What happened to his cracker? Well, he would just have to get out a new one. George found another cracker and then turned back around. But now his cheese was gone. Who could be taking his snacks? Oh, George was curious. He put down his cracker and waited. Oh, now George saw who was taking his treats. It was a seagull, and he was still hungry. George took out another cracker, and the bird took it right out of his hand. What fun to feed a seagull! George saw more seagulls down by the water. Betsy was there too. George was curious. Could those seagulls be hungry? Indeed, they were hungry. Oh, soon a large flock had gathered. George could not feed them fast enough. Luckily, Betsy was glad to help. Out of the basket came more crackers, cookies, a cake, and even the bread for sandwiches. Still, the birds were hungry. But when George reached for more snacks, the basket was gone. He and Betsy were having so much fun, they didn't notice the tide coming in. You know, at the ocean, the water will come up and it'll go back, and it'll come up and it'll go back, and sometimes it comes up further, back, comes up further. Well, it looks like it came up far enough to get that basket. They didn't notice the picnic basket was floating out to sea. George felt bad. He hadn't meant to lose the basket. Could there be a way to catch it? George thought and thought. Then he remembered the lifeguard. Now, George was no lifeguard, but to save the basket, he knew just what to do. Quickly, he found a float and carried it to the water. Jumping aboard, George began to paddle. He paddled out a little farther and a little farther and a little farther until finally he reached the basket. Oh, Betsy cheered. Then, as George paddled back to the beach, Betsy swam out to meet him. Oh, everyone was so glad to see George safe on the shore. The lifeguard, who had seen everything from his chair, said, "Whoa, that was some rescue!" George felt proud. The man with the yellow hat picked up the basket. He was curious. "George, is this our basket?" Poor George. After all that, the basket was empty. There would be no picnic on the beach, and it was all his fault. Well, then Betsy's grandmother said, "Oh, won't you join us for lunch? We have plenty. And look! Now we have a reason to celebrate thanks to George." And they did have a reason to celebrate. Betsy was in the water, and she wasn't scared anymore. She was having fun. After everyone joined Betsy and George for a swim, it was time to eat at last. There were sandwiches and chips, bananas, cookies, and watermelon. There was plenty for everyone. And there was even a little for guests, also known as seagulls. Have you ever been to the beach and you might see one seagull flying by? So, you throw up a little piece of bread or a piece of cracker. And all of a sudden, there are about 27 seagulls. They come from all over, and they just wait for you to go like that, because you're throwing that food, and they swoop right down and get it. I think that is so much fun, but sometimes I will fool the seagulls, and I'll throw some. I'd do that, but I didn't have anything in my hands. And the seagull comes down and, hey, but the other seagulls don't know this yet. So I throw up, and all the seagulls come, and then they figure out that I'm not throwing them any food, and they all take off. The beach is a fun place to be, but you also have to be very careful, because I was telling you about the tide. The water can come in and then go out. And if it's a strong tide and you don't weigh very much, it could knock you over or pull you out. So we have to respect the ocean and the beach and help take care of it. And you have to realize that the ocean is where many, many, many animals live and fish. And that's their home. And so we want to take care of it. And really, 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 we shouldn't feed the seagulls. But you know what? Now and then, it's fun. And it's fun to see them come down. They aren't afraid of humans. I mean, you can almost pet them, and they're quite big, a seagull. So I thought you would enjoy Curious George's day at the beach. And I love that his friend, in all the Curious George books, he doesn't have a name. He's just called the Man in the Yellow Hat. And they're good friends. And the Man in the Yellow Hat takes Curious George to all kinds of places because he's curious. A while back, I read to you Curious George Goes to the Library. And that was really interesting. He got into a little bit of trouble there. But I found another Curious George book, and I think I'm going to bring that next time. I think you'll enjoy it. I'm not going to tell you which one it is. Anyway, today I brought my hats. I brought my hat so I could look like the Queen, and I brought my beach hat because we've been to the beach and we have read about London, England. To get to London, England from the United States, you have to fly over the ocean. And London has lots of different things to see. And her hat blew off and flew over many of those things. Kensington Palace, Buckingham Palace. It was all right there in the Queen's hat. And we read this today because we're just saying thank you to the Queen. She was a good queen for 70 years. That's a long time. And now we bid a farewell to the Queen and to Curious George. And I want to remind you that I get many of the books I read to you at my library, and I have a library card. And when I walk in, do you know what? The lady there says to me, "Hi, book lady." She does. And sometimes I need help finding books that I think you will like, and she helps me. You'll love it at the library. I hope that you will go visit the library someday. But I hope that you will come back and watch the book lady too. And remember, the book lady is on YouTube. You can just go to YouTube and you can watch the book lady and hear the different books I bring whenever you want to. So until next time, I'm the book lady, and I'll be back with books for you. Bye-bye.